ஏதன் கண்ணே நிலையாகி இருந்திடும் உலகமெல்லாம் எதனதெல்லாம் எதனின்று அனைத்துலகும் எழுமோ மற்றிவையாகும் எதன் பொருட்டாம் எதனாலே வையமெல்லாம் எழுந்திடும் எல்லாமும் எதுவே ஆகும் அதுதானே உலகொருளாம் சத்தியமாம் அச்சுருகும் அகத்தில் வைப்பாம். That is the invocatory verse to the Anubandham taken from Yoga Vasishtam. And in the last two sessions, we were having some general discussions on the Yoga Vasishtam itself and also the Anubandham. And we have tried to see the various stories in chapter 5 of Yoga Vasishtam from where the invocatory verse has been taken. We had especially gone through the legends of Janaka, then Punya and Pavana, then King Bali, Janaka, then Prahalada, and we had come up to Uddalaka. Uddalaka, we had just seen. I'll briefly recap what we had seen in those legends. How Vasishta brings the enquiry gradually towards the self. And we had seen that in Ulladu Narpadu, Bhagavan goes directly to the self. In the Ulladu Narpadu invocatory verse, Bhagavan begins like this: Ulladala, Ulla Unarvu, Ullado, Ulla Porul, Ullalara, Ullakke Ulladal, Ullavenum, Ulla Porul, Ullalevan, Ullakke Ullabadi, Ullade, Ullal, Ulla. So, Bhagavan in that verse directly goes to the Ulla Porul and Ulla Unarvu. And then he talks about the sadhaka, Ullalevan. That Evan has two meanings, both the who as well as how. The sadhaka as well as the method, when the Ullapurul is existing as the heart, in the heart, as the thought-free, division-free consciousness, to abide in it, to abide in the Ullapurul as the Ullapurul is the invocation, is the meditation, is the invitation to the Ullapurul. That is how the verse ends. So it is a direct instruction or direct pointing out that to be thought-free, to be ego-free, to inquire into one's own truth and be ego-free and abide in the thought-free consciousness as the thought-free consciousness is the meditation on it. Whereas in the Anubandham, the verse selected from Yoga Vasishtam is more expansive. And every plus point will have a minus point also. Being expansive, it talks about many things. So, Edan Kande Nilayahi Irundadivum Ulahamellam. So here, instead of talking directly about the sadhaka and the sadhana, leading to Ulla Unarvu and Ulla Purul, Bhagavan, through Vasishta, sage Vasishta, Valmiki, he gives us that it is the same Ulla Purul which is the source of the entire creation, all the universes. That all the universes have their creation, that is birth, existence, and merging or dissolution in that Ullapurul domain. And quite rightly, Dilipji had pointed out that this gives us a very comprehensive look. Looking at both the invocatory verses together gives us a very comprehensive look that the source to which Bhagavan takes us is in self-inquiry is the same source of all the worlds that we could perceive. From there, we had gone on to the how the whole Vasishtam starts. The story of whether work or jnana, which is important, is the first question that is raised in the work. And Agastya is supposed to be the person to whom the question is addressed. And Agastya says that both are like two wings, two wings of the bird which needs to fly. So I will narrate a story to you, and he narrates a story. In that story, a boy like Rama, having inquired into the truth of the world, develops great dispassion which has arisen out of inquiry. And there Vasishta helps us out by saying that a dispassion that arises out of sorrow may have some negative element in it, whereas that dispassion which arises out of vichara, a deliberate look at the non-permanence of things, that brings in the eligibility, the adhikara for the jnana marga. So the boy there asks of his father that the scriptures say that we have to do all the prescribed duties till our last breath. In one part. In another part it says, Yagai naike amrutatva manush. Liberation is attained only by those, and some of them through the means of Tyaga, by renouncing of birth. Now I am confused which to take. So the father narrates another story. The style in which Yoga Vasishtam goes is through stories, then through meditations, and then to Atma Vichara. This story goes that there is a divine damsel who is on a mountain, and she espies an Indraloka messenger passing by. And the story is that he is going and he has invited a king with all his blessings from Indra. The king was meditating for a long time on a mountain, and after a certain stage of meditation, in almost all the stories it appears that good things start coming to you, that good people start surrounding you, good gifts are offered. Like that, Indra in this story offers great gifts to that king in his meditation. And the king asks, what happens if I come with you to the messenger? And the messenger says, you will be taken to heaven, and all these gifts you can enjoy. Oh, what is this heaven made of? Is the enquiry. What is it that I will be enjoying there? Then the messenger truthfully says that there are people with great merit, middling merit, and small amount of merit who come to heaven. And according to their merits, they enjoy happiness, they enjoy pleasures. And then at the end of their merits, they come back to this world, and they have to work their life out. Then the king says, no, I don't want to come to that kind of heaven. Then the same Indra tells him, I will take you, tells the messenger to take that king. Now that he has said these gifts are not required, let him reconsider after going to sage Valmiki. So he is taken to sage Valmiki by the messenger, and the king asks, what is the way to come out of the cycle of birth and death? And Valmiki, of course, says, I will narrate to you the dialogue between Vasishta and Rama, and that will enable you to come out of this cycle of births and deaths. And the king says bye-bye to the messenger. Indraloka, I would like not to come there. I would like to stay in this ashram and listen to the dialogue. So that is how the dialogue between Vasishta Muni and Rama starts out. And we find that there are two works available to us, the Laghu Yoga Vasishta and the Yoga Vasishta Sara. Yoga Vasishta Sara contains the teachings in the dialogues between Rama and Vasishta mainly. There are snippets from other stories also. Those are extracted and presented to us in 10 chapters in the Yoga Vasishta Sara. And the Laghu Yoga Vasishtam, it is the main contents of the story are also covered in that. The Laghu Yoga Vasishtam translation is available as download. So is Yoga Vasishta Sara. There is also another daily meditation from Yoga Vasishtam from Shivananda Ashram. All these three are available as downloads on the internet. So those are the three I have referred to while discussing the invocate rivers. And that is how the dialogue between Vasishta Muni and Rama starts. And we had covered about 5 of the legends that Vasishta brings in to the dialogue. He starts off with some sub stories, and then he comes to the story of Janaka. In the story of Janaka, we found that mainly the import is that Janaka is suddenly opened up. We can't tell how he was eligible. So Vasishta Muni delineates between the two methods in which jnana can come to us, either through the gradual practice of the teachings given by the Guru, or the sudden infusion from somewhere, the cause of which we cannot tell. And then he leaves the gradual path and he tells a story about only the sudden path, where Janaka gets somehow he becomes eligible. He doesn't even know how he became eligible. And he comes upon the dialogue between some Siddhas in his garden, while walking in his garden. And the Siddhas, they talk about how the Atma Jnana can be arrived at by either, the first Siddha says, co-mingling of the seer and the seen, the knower and the known. How to co-mingle? Drop all concepts, drop all thoughts, even while sight is fixed in the surroundings in the park. If one drops all the thoughts, then the division between the knower and the known vanishes. So that is the first Siddha. Then the second Siddha says it could also be achieved by eliminating the seen through elimination of the vasanas. So if you eliminate the vasanas, then also the seen dissolves and the seer alone remains. That is Atma Jnana. And the third Siddha, fourth Siddha, they discuss, and listening to this, Janaka goes and starts his meditation on Atma Jnana. So that is the story of Janaka. Then we saw the Punya and Pavana story, the two brothers who are meditators, of which Punya has already attained self-realization. Their parents, they move on. They die, and at their the last waits, the Pavana is afflicted by great sorrow, and then Punya gives him the instructions that how that the parents have gone nowhere. None of the individuals ever die. It is always the life current, the I within us, which appears as these various individuals. Death is unreal, birth is unreal. If you identify with the current, you and all individuals are only the life current. That story we find in the talks with Ramana Maharshi also. Bhagavan quotes that. That is the Punya and Pavana legend. Then we saw the legend of Bali, where the meditation on consciousness we saw. Two things in Bali's this one. That first he discusses about how each of the senses could lead us to a fall and make the division real. How the deer succumbs to the sounds, how the elephant succumbs to the touch, and the honeybee succumbs to the smell. Like that, each of the senses drags each of those animals, whereas we are drawn by all the 5 senses. Whereas if you look at the senses as the seen and remove the thoughts, drop the thoughts, then the very sensory pleasure, sensory happiness of the sensory experience is converted into atmic experience. When even while looking, one is not looking, one is in the self. So Vasishta Muni starts Atmajnana through the senses, through the outermost point of division. That is where he starts through the story of Bali. And the meditation we saw there that Bali, through the instructions from Shukracharya, he meditates. So without the consciousness, can that mountain exist? Therefore, the mountain is nothing but consciousness. Without consciousness, can attachment and hatred exist in me? Therefore, attachment and hatred, which I see as objective experience, are only this consciousness. Can the other and I thought exist apart from consciousness? No. Therefore, the other and I are only this consciousness. Now, everything is consciousness. The outside objects, including the mountain and all the universes, are the consciousness. The inside emotions and thoughts are all consciousness. Jealousy, hatred, anger, attachment, love, all these are consciousness. The other personas and me are all consciousness. Therefore, there is only consciousness, and this consciousness has no division as object and subject, and that consciousness is me, and that is how Bali comes to Atmajnana, removing the objective divisions one by one from senses and onwards into himself. That the Atma alone is. And from there, we move to the legend of Uddalaka and Suragu. And before that, we had the legend of Gadi. Gadi, of course, from the senses to the emotions to the inside. Gadi now describes that the entire creation is due to Maya. And therefore, he asks Vishnu, please explain to me what is Maya. And we saw that while remaining immersed in the waters in the river nearby his meditation place, he goes off. He sees his own death. He goes off and takes another birth. In that birth, he is a tribesman, and he is garlanded and becomes a king for 8 years in a country. Then his identity is revealed in an event, and he is sent out. And the people in that country, they undergo immolation, and he also immolates himself. And in that moment, he rises in the water there. So Vishnu tells him, see, this is Maya. That you are here, you are one thing, whereas you imagine that you are something else. All those times and all those experiences are you. So inquire who are you, who you are, and find your truth and overcome Maya. So I will bless you that you not only see Maya, but you also get the method how to transcend Maya. So that was the story of Gadi. And then now we come to Uddalaka and we try to finish off the other three stories that are there. But the general direction is that Vasishta Muni is taking us to the Atma step by step from the outer to the inner. So after having completed discussion of Maya, in Uddalaka we find a sage, in Suragu also we find a sage. But the difference between the two is that Uddalaka once again he starts removing one by one element after another in the objective world. Therefore, he comes to a place called Samadhi. When all the objects are removed by Uddalaka as not the self, as this division is untrue, he comes to a place where the entire objective experience is only Chidakasha, is only the pure consciousness. This is the Chidakasha which Bhagavan practically tells us that he saw in his second death experience. That while coming from the Pachaiman Koil after an oil bath, going to Virupaksha cave, he comes to the tortoise rock, and near the tortoise rock, he says he undergoes a fainting fit. It is usual for him to undergo those fainting fits, he says, but this one was pretty severe. And he could feel his physical heart stop and the body go blue. The blood circulation stops. But the life current I has not not stopped. This Purana has not stopped, and he is conscious of the devotee holding on to his body and crying. And he says he was crying there, and what happened was, when the heart stopped, slowly a white screen started from one end of my spectrum of vision and covered the world vision from one end to the another, and there was only the white screen that was visible. Now, that is the place where that is natural to Bhagavan, that when the body drops, automatically the Purna Jnana is there. There is nowhere to go. And he is that consciousness which is able to somehow, inexplicable to our mind, is still able to feel that Vasudeva Shastri is holding him and crying. And then after 10 minutes or so, the Spurana gives the light to the physical part like a cracker, and the physical heart starts pumping again, and blood starts circulating, and he walks back to the cave, right? But that is the place where Uddalaka reaches. When he eliminates all the objects, then he comes to the place called Samadhi, where there is only the blank. Now, this is the same blank that is experienced in Atma Vicharam by Chadwick and many others, who say that some of them still have remnants of fear. And Chadwick says he feels a lot of fear while coming to the blank. And Bhagavan says that is due to lack of parichaya. You have not introduced yourself to that experience sufficiently. So be free of the body identity and go back to that samadhi again and again till you have parichaya of it. That is your nature. Now, that samadhi practice is there in Uddalaka story. That for long periods of time, one has to remain in Nirvikalpa Samadhi before self-knowledge dawns. So that is the key aspect of Uddalaka story. That is, if you remove objects one by one and come, then practice of Samadhi state for long periods of time has to take place. Whereas the legend of Suragu clears that the same Samadhi can be directly reached through who am I. The same Samadhi that Suragu reached by elimination of objects, elimination of thought forms one by one, can be directly reached by who am I. When you keep inquiring who am I, the same Samadhi state comes. The next legend of Bhasa and Vilasa says that those who practice Samadhi, those who take rest in Samadhi, they need to understand that any slippage from Samadhi is sorrow for them. That means they have gone to that state where all the objects have been crossed, but any slippage from Samadhi state is a sorrow for them. That is Bhasa and Vilasa. And I was taken back to one of the inquiries Suchitrama and I had made about 6-7 years back in one of the seminars. We were discussing the Jnana Bhumikas. And in that, we had we had done some studies here, and we had found that in the Dvaita Marga, the same 4 states, that is waking, dream, deep sleep, turiya, they are actually by permutation and combination, they are made into 256 words. That is waking, dream, deep sleep, and turiya. You have permutation combination, mixtures. Then you get 16 are 256 words they are proposing. And in that, the Samadhi Sthiti comes, those words come in those who have brought the deep sleep into waking, those who know. So the Sushupti, they have already practiced bringing into the waking state. Those are the ones who are experiencing Samadhi Sthiti. Now, with great powers come great responsibility, is what we had studied. That those who are capable of bringing Sushupti into the waking state, they have great responsibility. That's where both of us, we had read the stories about Ravana, where it was told that Ravana is someone who was such a meditator that he had experienced Samadhi state. Now, therefore, even a slippage from Samadhi state is sin for him. The books, the Dvaita Marga books, they were saying that with that power of meditation that is given to you, you are accountable to remain there, to experience happiness only there. And your pluses and minuses, Papa and Punya, are not merely accounted in terms of this world. It starts in slippage in Samadhi. So that is the Bhasa Vilasa story, that those who are practicing Samadhi experiences, or to those whom this has been gifted, the ability to be identity free. There, what happens once you go into Sushupti, you can be ego free. But suppose you use that ego free nature in this world in a different way, then the accounting starts there, that you have dropped out of Samadhi state. You are using your stillness for something else. So those who have been blessed with that, Bhasa and Vilasa story says that the responsibility is theirs to remain in Samadhi and understand that their sorrow begins where? Not in some happenings of this world, but in just slipping from Samadhi itself. There itself, there. That is Bhasa Vilasa story to us. And finally, we have the legend of Vitavahana, where the Atmajnana experience is directly accounted to us. What is Atmajnana? The Atmajnana is the same as that experience, what is called as Shiva by Shaivites, what is called as void by atheists. Those who don't believe in the existence of Supreme, they call the same state as void, as Shunya. That is Yoga Vasishtam for us. See, the broad-mindedness of Yoga Vasishtam, we will find it covers all the roots, whatever is the highest state. And interestingly, it is said it is called as Kala by those who meditate on time. We find many modern scientists meditating on time and coming with their findings that time is illusory. They were finding that time is moving in one direction. Now certain new findings are there about time. Now those who meditate on time, just Rama meditates on time, for instance, in his the Vairagya, he meditates how time consumes everything. He says time consumes whatever you see, time consumes all the thoughts, time consumes all the thoughts. That is how when he meditates on time, he says time consumes Vishnu, Brahma and Shiva. That is how Rama meditates in the beginning of Yoga Vasishta. So whenever you take a concept for meditation, you should make it supreme. You should understand that that concept can eliminate all other concepts, but it is still a concept, and there is a seer of that concept. Namandri Nadedu Nadedu. Bhagavan says in Ulladu Narpadu, even if you use time to eliminate all other concepts and you understand that time can eat up everything, but still there is a seer of time. Namandri Nadedu Nadedu. Without the I, is there a time? Is there a place? Bhagavan asks. Till you are there. Still you are there. So even when you have used Kala to eliminate everything else, you can eliminate that Kala by saying, who am I? By self-attention. So the self-attention or the Atma Jnana is supreme in Yoga Vasishtam. And that is how it begins, that which is called Parabrahman by Brahmavadins, that which is called Vijnana by Vijnanavadins, that which is called Purusha by Sankyas, that which is called Isha by the Yogins, that which is called Shiva by Shivagamis, that which is called Kala by Kalajnanis or Kala doctrines, that which is called Madhyama by Madhyamikas. There are these Madhyamikas who call middle path. They say truth is neither Sat nor Asat, but in between. One of the Siddhas there, the third Siddha, to whom Janaka was listening, he said, the Atma is neither Sat nor Asat, it is Madhyama, it is in the middle. So, those who talk of middle path, that what they call as middle is this self, is what is told in the Vitavahana story. And finally, those who are equally looking on all the paths, they call the Atma as that which pervades everything. That is how the legend of Vitavahana ends. And That is the end of the legends of chapter 5. And Bhagavan says that this is the truth, that which Vetavahana finds as the culmination of all the legends. The Atma Jnana, which is actually the highest principle meditated on by all the paths, Bhagavan says, Satyama, Adhitane Ulapurulam, that which is the source of all the worlds, all that is objective. Once that object subject division goes, and once you are in the Atma Jnana, that is the source of all the created worlds. And Bhagavan says, Adhitane Ulapurulam. That is the what is. The what is not what we perceive in front of us. The what is Ulapur. The Atma is the what is. Adhitane Ulapurulam Satyama. That is the truth. Acchorupam. That Atma Swarupam Ahatil Vepam. Let us place it in the heart. That is how the verse ends. One of the questions that my friend from 1985 he had asked was, how is it that you say, he's a scientist and he has been inquiring a lot into quantum physics and all that. I don't know much about that. But his question to me was, how is it that something you find between the 2 ears, the brain he is referring, how is it that that can be the source of the whole creation? Or I had extended that question to include the right side of the chest, which Bhagavan gives us clue for Hridaya. When Bhagavan is asked, where in the body do we find the heart, the point in which Bhagavan got that the experience of I, even in his second death experience, and from right side of the chest, the energy passed down to the left and it activated the bodily life again. That right side of the chest, Bhagavan would say that in early days, many devotees have placed their hands on his chest and felt the current, the life current. And Bhagavan would say that is one of the points of dhyana. For dhyana support, the right side of the chest is indicated. So, extending that question, how can something that lies between our 2 ears, because the inquiry, according to Arun Kakkar, my friend, it takes place in the brain. And if we extend it to the right side of the chest, it is attending to this point on the right side of the chest. How can that be the source of the entire cosmos? So, but that's not a difficult thing to work out. Especially if we go into Yoga Vasishtam and see the pranayama explanation contained in the story of Bhusunda, that is in the next chapter, the crow, pranayama is extensively dealt with. That is bahik pranayama, antah pranayama and all that. But bringing it down to some understanding which I can make, I am not very good at the nuances of pranayama. But what is said there is that the prana and apana, the in-breath and the out-breath, they have an end point. They have an end point of merger. That merger can be considered to be here, about 12 inches or so outside of you, where the external breath goes, and it meets the breath of the rest of the cosmos. And fortunately for us, it meets oxygen there. And it is able to take in oxygen in the in-breath. That is Bahik Kumbhaka and Antah Kumbhaka. There is a resting place inside where also the in-drawn breath can be held. So, 2 Kumbhakas are mentioned, Bahik Kumbhaka and Antah Kumbhaka, where the prana and apana co-mingled. The co-mingling of sun and the moon. One is called as the sun and another is called as the moon. But it is so simple to understand that by this co-mingling, we find that our breath is not ours. My breath is not mine. It is the summation of everyone. So when I inquire about prana and apana, I find that it is about breath. It is not about my breath. So my and others vanishes in true vichara about prana and apana. Where and we will find an interesting parallel in the discussion by Tomchi, where he says every outbreath of the plant world is an in-breath of mankind, and every out-breath of mankind is an in-breath of plant world. We are all interconnected. He says that right from the time of Big Bang, uh, that which is running inside us as blood, it contains the iron molecule. That iron molecule can be made only by supernovas collapsing and reorganizing themselves into various planets and solar systems, and many joinings and separations, they finally result in iron molecule, and that is present in us. So we who all have this iron molecule in us are connected to that cosmic dance in the beginning of which happened as soon as the Big Bang started. So yes, we are connected with that, and we are connected with the plant world through our breathing, because we need oxygen and they take in, fortunately for us, carbon dioxide. So we are connected. Whereas in prana apana dhyana, the pranayama in Yoga Vasishtam, it says the rest of the cosmos breathes, and the net result is available to you as sum of the oxygen. And when your carbon dioxide outlet finds the end point, fortunately it meets what you want. It meets the oxygen given and presented by the rest. That's why they say keep the pollution down, so that oxygen is still available there. And the rest of the cosmos is designed in such a way that the prana is available to you as oxygen, you draw it in. So we find that this is the individuality goes there. So it is not between 2 years, it is about everything. That is how the source of the I. So when we investigate into what is love, how it becomes attachment, aversion, and unconditional love, it is not mine. It is about the nature of love. It is the nature of bhakti. It is the nature of true love that is inquired into. So the I and mine go there. Similarly, the source of the I thought is the source of the entire creation. That is how Yoga Vasishtam takes us to that same place of Ullapuru, which is not only our source, it is the source of everything. Today we'll sit for 10 minutes.
Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana, shining as a self in all beings. So, through various stories, Yoga Vaishishtam is bringing us back to that point, which is the basis of all thought. And as Nandakumarji has taken us through the step-by-step progression in the stories, wherein finally the last story brings us to the culmination of self-inquiry, being the one point from which or in which all this gets included. And that one point which can be, Nandakumarji also made the reference, experienced as the locus or the spiritual heart. And how is it possible that one can have a locus for that which is all inclusive? Or how can it be that one can focus on something which, say, even if one focuses on the breath, ultimately it becomes the universal breath. If one focuses on, meditates on any one aspect, like time, it becomes universal. How does it reach the point of universality? It reaches when it merges into the inquiry or the question of for whom is this? Who is this who is aware of it? Who is aware of the breath? Who is aware of time? Who has become aware of all this? And so Bhagavan says in Ashtakam, probably covering all these in one verse in a simple manner, he says in his third verse in Ashtakam, he says, O Arunachala, when we think of you as form, you are the hill. But if without thoughts we meditate on you, then we merge in you. The surrender, Bhagavan says over there, we merge in you like a sugar doll in the sea. The surrender which Bhagavan indicates there is the surrender of all the thoughts, which again happens in self-inquiry, because in self-inquiry, every thought that rises is surrendered through the question, primary question, for whom is this thought? And second question is, when the thought's answer comes, this is for me, then the question, who am I, takes us back to that source, what Bhagavan calls the source. And he gives this space of the right side of the chest as the space from which the source is experienced, so long as one is in the body, or one, so long as he says one has a sense of being the body in some way, inexplicable way. So it is like Bhagavan is saying that so long as one sees the form, you are that hill, you are Arunachala, even so long as there is a form, the Hridaya is experienced. The center, heart center is experienced. Vishwanatha Swami would say this is like a circle. This experience is like the experience of a circle whose center is everywhere and circumference is nowhere. Because if that heart center is every heart center for every being, there is no this particular location actually ultimately, and that's how he says when the breath goes out and it is merged with the universal breath. Similarly, when one goes into the heart locus also, the boundary or the space or the location would vanish. It is said even in a geometrical point that a point is not a physical space at all. It is so subtle and so minute. Then when one goes into it, it ceases to exist. Even so, the center would cease to exist. Anything into which one goes with the absolute intensity, it dissolves into the overall the truth. That is what all the different sadhanas have shown us. So Bhagavan says it is like the sugar doll being dissolved into the sea. And then he goes on to say that if we ask ourselves the question, who am I, and recognize our true nature, then, O Arunachala, where am I apart from you? There is no sugar doll at all. There is no one apart from you. And you alone are. That's what Bhagavan says. So that the way of inquiry makes us recognize, says Bhagavan, that this separate existence, so-called separate existence, is actually not there at all. Where am I apart from you? When I can recognize who I am through the inquiry. So that becomes, as Bhagavan says, the direct path, because it includes everything. It doesn't exclude anything. Because it includes everything, all the paths are included in it. Therefore, it becomes, Bhagavan says, it can be reached directly. One does not have to go through long spells of sadhana. One does not have to go through the vicissitudes of experiencing Maya and then recognizing that it is Maya. One doesn't have to do the discrimination, even the discrimination, for long periods of time, because when one discriminates between this is the right, this is the wrong thing, this is truth, this is false, one has to keep on at elimination because of the multitude. That is the multitude, that is the world of which this self is Adhara, is told to us in this Dhyana Shloka. But the emphasis which Bhagavan gives us is, yes, this is the Adhara of the manifest multitude only. This infinite variety is there, and the possibility of variety, Nandakumarji also referred to the permutation combination of the states. There is only one set of permutation combinations. But the possibility of manifestation is literally infinite. It is literally endless. So where does it finish? Where does it end if we start going in that direction, the direction of manifestation? And if we have to say to each and everything, oh, of this thing, the self is the basis. Of this, the self is the basis. Of this, the self is the basis. How many times we have to apply that concept? It would be again infinite. But in this, what Bhagavan, in the going through the stream of stories and culminating in self-inquiry, we find Bhagavan's emphasis is that if you hold the fact of the Adhara, this is the Adhara of the world, this is the Adhara of everything, this is the Adhara again and again. So if you hold the Adhara, if you turn the attention to the Adhara, if you turn the attention to the source, then everything gets included in it. So through inquiry, Bhagavan asks us to turn the attention to the source. And the source, he does designate as the heart. Even in Ramana Gita, he says that the entire world, entire universe is contained in the mind. And the mind, that is the mind which has its seat in the brain, which is between the 2 ears. But the mind in turn, he says, is contained in the heart. So he says the story of the universe begins and ends in the heart. So if one gets back to the heart, what happens? It might be an example had come to me, which I have shared earlier also, of tuning into a song in the transistor radios of your. And when we used to tune into a song, we had a transistor and we would tune it at a particular station, and we would take some trouble to tune it at that particular station. But where is the song? The song is not in there, inside the transistor. The song is everywhere. But because of our inability to perceive the song everywhere, we tune into the song within the transistor at a particular station, which is the station of the spiritual heart given to us by Bhagavan. But once we have tuned into that station, the station ceases to be of any significance, the transistor ceases to be of any significance, the song alone remains. So once the tuning in happens to the spiritual heart, the song of the self alone remains and nothing else would be there. This is what has been brought home to us very beautifully through the stories. And when we go through various stories, we also remember how many stories have been played out in our own lives. Millions of stories have been played out in our own lives from birth until now. And listening to all the stories, we may say, okay, now let me get to the truth. So many stories are there. But what is the adhara of every story? What is the purpose of every story? What is the purpose of every action of ours, which is a story in itself? The purpose is to get back to the self. That's what these stories beautifully take us to again and again. That this is the sole purpose. This is the sole purpose, to get back and abide with the self, as Bhagavan says in his Ekashloki, Atmanishto Bhavatvam. And which is, grace is there to take us to without any doubt, because Bhagavan has declared in Aksharamamale, Thirumbi Ahandari Dinamaha Kankan Teriyum Yandrane. It will be revealed. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramana.
Bhagavan has given us the direct path of holding the eye. And one of the siddhas to Janaka, the fourth siddha, he refers to Atmacharana. That is to meditate on that which dwells as the eye in all the jivas. So that is the fourth siddha who says that is also, it takes us to Atmajnana. That is the direct path given by Bhagavan. While the advantage of Bhagavan's method is that we hold the eye, it doesn't cover the words that are in front of us. It takes us directly to the eye. So our prevarications may sometimes make us be still there. The vasanas which are being erased here will be continuing, but our attraction to the words will still be there. The meditation on the Anubandham, it will help us directly avoid this. That is by describing how the senses are outward turned, by describing how the mind is outward turned, each of these verses, and by describing the first 5 verses are on satsang, how the association with the good people, association with good thoughts, and association with Atma, all these 3 can be considered as satsang. So, by referring to those 5 verses, Bhagavan will be alerting to us that when avoid those situations where you are not in such a company. So the help of Anubandham will be there. It will now bring us to the direction of Atma in 2 ways. One is the pull of the Atma Ucharan, and the other is push of Vairagyam, the not going towards the outside. Each of the verses in Anubandham will help us towards that. The first 5 are on satsang. So we'll be alerted that what all we are doing in the outward, can be attained much more easily when we go towards the self. So, and each of them will be delineated. It will be very useful along with the practice of Atma Ucharan. That is why Bhagavan has translated. He has taken the trouble of translating because he finds that it will be helpful to all of us. Otherwise, he wouldn't have translated. So let us meditate on these verses slowly and take the maximum benefit of them.